Hello and welcome. My name is Patty Murray, and I will be your host and moderator for today's peer-to-peer webinar presented by FamilyKind, a nonprofit organization that empowers children, parents, and couples before, during, and after separation or divorce. We are able to bring this webinar series for professionals free of charge, thank you, free of charge due to the generosity of our two sponsors, SoberLink and Our Family Wizard. SoberLink supports accountability for sobriety and child safety, combining a breathalyzer with facial recognition and wireless connectivity for real-time results and reports. SoberLink's new Family Assistance Program offers alcohol monitoring free of charge to anyone who qualifies. By increasing our total reach in our mission of supporting families affected by alcohol abuse, this program will help continue to reduce litigation and foster peace of mind. Our Family Wizard is a comprehensive app that enables you to conduct all your co-parenting communication on a single platform. Powerful tools document your parenting time, reimbursement requests, payments, exchanges, and more. This means less conflict and more energy to focus on your children. Today's webinar is entitled Case Study: Separating and Divorcing During the COVID Crisis. Next slide, please. We are going to listen in on a conversation between two professionals discussing a hypothetical case and reviewing important legal and mental health considerations. I'd like to tell you a little bit about today's faculty. First, we have Robin Mann, attorney, licensed in New York, Connecticut, and Colorado. Next slide, please. She is trained and experienced divorce and family mediator with 30+ years experience. She also works on business and real estate matters. So Robin is able to provide advice on a wide array of legal, financial, and practical issues involved in a separation or divorce. Next, we have Lauren Bierman, who is a clinical psychologist, mediator, collaborative divorce professional, author, and parenting coordinator. Lauren's practice is a mix of individual therapy with children and adults, couples and families facing challenges, especially in high conflict cases. She also serves as a neutral child specialist. Also joining us is Leslie Friedland. She is the executive director of FamilyKind, who will add in her insights from time to time. One housekeeping note: please feel free to send in your questions using the Q&A feature throughout the event, and we will address them during a special Q&A session at the end. Now it is my great pleasure to turn things over to Robin and Lauren. Robin?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our COVID-19 case study. Lauren and I are going to discuss a case or case facts that are collated from a variety of actual cases that we've worked on together. And primarily, one of the things we want you to take away is the benefit to the case and the clients of having having a variety of professional involvement in the case. Lauren being a parent coordinator in most of these cases, and me being a lawyer in most of these cases. Now I will turn it over to Lauren to actually tell us more about the facts.
Thank you, Robin. So, we're really going to demonstrate a phone call that we have between us on these hypothetical facts. This is not an actual case that either of us are working on. We have compiled these facts together. So, hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm very good, Lauren. What's going on?
So I got a case just recently that was referred by attorneys for parenting coordination. And given what's the backup in the courts, really, the attorneys felt like perhaps they could resolve these issues better if they spoke with a neutral parenting coordinator. And I might be able to help them. But, I always like to discuss this with you so that we can really put our heads together and I can get a legal perspective as well.
That's great. I'm happy to help.
Great. So the current situation is that Sam and Liz are co-parenting two boys. The boys are 10 and 13, and Sam hasn't seen his sons in person since the beginning of March. So I'll get into more of the details, how this evolved, but what brought the case to me right at this time is at the end of April, Liz took a leave of absence from her work. She quarantined with her children for 14 days at her apartment. And then she notified Sam that she wanted to bring the children up to Columbia County to her parents' house, which is 2.5 hours from their apartments in Manhattan. And of course, Sam, not having seen the children since the beginning of March, just saw this as one, huge limitation and restriction. So let me give you a little bit more of the background and try and fill it in a little. So Sam and Liz were married for about 14 years. And as I mentioned, they have these 10 and 13-year-old sons. And they divorced about 3 years ago, and it was a very acrimonious divorce. It was a litigated divorce, although, on the courthouse steps, they were able to settle it and sign a stipulation. Liz is an ER nurse, and in fact, she's been on the front lines in the coronavirus pandemic, and Sam is a construction worker. And during the pendency of the divorce and also during the marriage, Liz had a lot of concerns about Sam and his alcohol abuse. And she stated in the court that Sam, on a number of occasions, at least 2, was fall down drunk, and he blacked out in the presence of herself and the children. And there was a full forensic evaluation, but ultimately they eventually resolved custody, and Sam agreed to sober link prior to his parenting time, so that he would do the breathalyzer prior to his parenting time. And what they agreed upon was that if the sober link was positive, he would forfeit his visit, his parenting time, for a month. And then in the week before he would resume, he would have to have 3 clean breathalyzer tests prior to resuming his parenting time. And on his own, Sam voluntarily began attending AA 2 years ago, and currently he's been consistent for the entire 2 years, as much as we can tell. And he submitted 20 months of clean breathalyzer tests through SoberLink prior to his parenting time with his kids, with his children. But in their agreement, in 24 months of clean SoberLink, he would be able to get rid of that breathalyzer requirement after 2 years.
Okay.
So post-divorce, Sam and Liz lived 10 blocks away from each other in Manhattan, down on the south end of the city. And they both lived in high-rise buildings. And then when the pandemic hit, Sam voluntarily suspended moving back and forth, the children moving back and forth, and he agreed to increased virtual visits with his children, remote visits. But then when mid-April, Sam lost his job in the end of March. He was laid off. And in mid-April, he wanted to resume his in-person time with the children. And he said that he was following all the CDC protocols. He was socially isolating, wearing masks, maintaining distance from other people, and, doing frequent hand washing. And Liz continued to work during the pandemic. She was on the front lines. She was exposed to the virus on all of her shifts. But nonetheless, she was fearful about his parenting time in person continuing, and she denied his request. And Sam was really getting more and more frustrated, and he began sending Liz threatening emails, and he hired an attorney. From Sam's report, the children have missed him, and they also are worried about mom's exposure to the virus. And so, that catches us up to the present. Mom took the leave of absence and quarantined for 14 days, and now she wants to take the children up to Columbia County. So that's the situation.
Yeah, and I'm sure that sharing with them a variety of articles related to the COVID pandemic and how the judges in the courts would see it. For example, Judge Sunshine's article at the New York Law Journal, where he's encouraging parents to consider that their choices and behaviors during this period of time will be considered by judges later on. And then, of course, Judge Miller's article in the New York Law Journal about parent education. Those are things that I would encourage you to share with these clients of yours. That probably is the first thing I would suggest.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think it would really be helpful to share it with them in a neutral way, but that they both understand
right.
That, in this time, while they may not be able to get in front of a judge, that how they've behaved and what they've done is not going to be missed.
Right.
I don't quite understand what is Liz's concern, because it would seem to me that it's her exposure that's far more significant than Sam's exposure.
Right.
So I would really want to understand that quite a bit better, like what in fact is this
that's fine.
about?
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's
You
part and
too.
parcel of what you need to do, is understand better Liz's concern, and maybe also understand, these children are 10 and 13. They might have something to say with regard to the situation.
Yes, in this particular case, as a parent coordinator, I don't treat children in psychotherapy, but I certainly have input from children who are of certain ages when the issue is, regard them or their choices or their preferences, etc. So I would want to ask to have one virtual interview with the children.
Okay.
In a private setting, just to kind of hear how they're doing with this coronavirus and, what's been happening and how they're feeling about it.
Okay.
See what would come out of that.
Right. Have you considered asking everybody to get tested, perhaps? I know that testing is available now without symptoms being shown, and maybe that would help, just check off one of the boxes for Liz, who is fearful about, whether her children are going to be more exposed.
Yeah, well, that's part of my understanding of what it is that is on her mind about this. Okay. So if it is about exposure to the virus, or for Sam to have the coronavirus test and or the antibody test might give her some peace of mind.
Yeah.
If that's really what's bothering her.
Right.
I'm also wondering about the idea that that Sam has 20 months of clean breathalyzers, and in 4 more months, he would be able to let go of that requirement. And so I don't know whether that might be something that's playing in here, that she has some worry or concern that once that requirement is no longer there, that she won't have the same level of confidence. Right. That he's sober.
Yeah, but she really has to be careful about using this particular pandemic as an excuse to deny access to the kids. At this point in time, it's my understanding the judges really would like to see the current access schedules continue, unless there's something really, documented that would increase the risk for the kids. And in this case, it actually looks like the kids are less risky with Sam, as he's not working and he has been at home.
Right. I also wonder, this was a 3-year contentious divorce, and I don't know that they've had an opportunity to work with any kind of co-parent counselor or parenting coordinator to help fix or repair their communication. Right. Because oftentimes when you've got a litigation like that and a marriage that fails, the communication between parents can be so, contentious and difficult. And certainly Sam's threatening letters are not really helping here. So one thing I would consider also is having the two parents do a conference call with their pediatrician to talk about, from the pediatrician's point of view, are there any concerns that they should be aware of? I also would try to help them have a conversation to sync their COVID protocols in both homes, which would allow them to create a bubble that would be inclusive of mom's home and dad's home. And I'm also, would have a conversation with them to discuss their options, because it's possible that it's better for the children to be out of the city, and maybe that's even what the pediatrician would say. But if that is true, how can we also help the children spend time with their dad? Is it possible for dad to find a rental nearby and that they could create a bubble up there? Is it possible, for mom to bring the child to meet somewhere with dad so that he can have an outdoor visit and time with his children? If in fact the pediatrician feels that that would really actually be the healthiest plan for the children.
Right. So one other thing that I've seen, or I've been advising clients is, even though visitation is perhaps on hold right now, makeup time is likely to be supported by the court if they do end up in court. So that Liz should be aware that even though Sam's not seeing his children right now, he's not losing time. It's going to be that he's going to get that time back sometime in the future. So maybe she really needs to get very, clear about her reasons for denying the visits, and with the understanding that they should start as soon as possible, just not only for the best interest of the children, but because, that time's not completely lost. It's going to come back for Sam.
Yeah. I think we also do want to give these parents some tools for parental communication. We want to check out, is there anything that is not really apparent here that would be a concern for Liz? Like, are there underlying conditions with her parents? How old are they? What is likely to be, her concern? But I do agree with you, Robin, that she does need to know that there very well might be makeup time.
Yeah.
And that, if in fact what she really is doing is restricting dad's access and parenting time, that will not be looked favorably upon by the court.
Yeah. So one of the great tools that I often bring into my cases is the Our Family Wizard app. I find that if the parties are able to utilize the higher level of oversight, then that kind of monitors the tone of communication. And for a lawyer, I ask to be included or to be welcome into their communications through the OFW app. And that way I can sort of monitor it myself. And it also provides me with a place where that kind of communication is accessible for me if I'm representing a client later, so that I can actually, maybe say to the court they do a good job co-parenting, or tell the court that they can't co-parent. It helps to kind of like identify that as well.
Right. Yeah, I also, as a parenting coordinator, will use the Our Family Wizard app to so that I can monitor their communication and the tone and what's going on between them in real time.
Yeah.
And certainly those threatening emails, I think would be, the tone meter would catch those right away, and they really aren't helpful. Understanding that there's frustration, but still you need to be able to take down the conflict so that, the children aren't hurt by that kind of parental communication and parental conflict. The other thing I could really offer to them is the FamilyKind's parent ed classes, and some of the tremendous resources that FamilyKind has for helping parents begin to really walk the same path and work as a team for their children.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Sorry, didn't want to interrupt, Lauren.
I think, Robin, you might want to flip the slide.
Yep. Okay, so we definitely talked about all of this. The pediatricians are very important right now in my work with my clients. And if they are willing to give their advice on what's risky and what's not risky behaviors and choices, they can be really useful. Teachers as well, when I've been in a situation where the children, like now, they're going through school, so at least for a little bit longer. What does it mean to the teacher to have the children, accessible or going back and forth from house to house? How can that happen to help support the children's education? So, and then there are all those great FamilyKind, parent education and other resources. The Good Talk for Parents program might help them reinforce what you're going to bring to them, which is so much a part of what your expertise is, helping them communicate and co-parent for the better of the children.
Right. I just want to jump in for a minute. I think what you're both saying is so important, and just trying to see what's behind these feelings that the family has to try to help them understand it so they can move forward in a healthy way. And I also think this is a great opportunity for this couple to not only learn communication skills for now, but we are now moving towards the summer. We're really into the summer and into next fall. So navigating things now is very important, but maybe it can help them have the discussion into the next step so they can learn sort of how to communicate, because, as you're both mentioning, this is when they're back in court, if they're back in court, all of this, their behavior now is going to be looked at. And in addition, they deserve to have good tools and strategies when other things come their way.
The pandemic is really like a lightning rod. It's a lightning rod for conflict that already existed. And then it kind of creates just another stress and just another touch point for there to be more intensive conflict. And, it's really important for us to be able to kind of ascertain, are the restrictions serious health restrictions? Are they justified? Or are the restrictions more based upon anger and hurt and the past and conflict between the two parents?
Okay.
Could you advance the slide, please?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So there's guidelines, 7 guidelines for parents who are separated and divorced during sharing custody of children during the COVID-19 pandemic. These were issued by a committee of lawyers and mental health professionals through the AFCC, the Association
Of Family and
for
Conciliation.
Family and Conciliation Courts, and
That's
the
a hard one.
AAML, the AAML, the Association of, is it American Matrimonial Lawyers?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here are the guidelines that we should be offering to all of our families who are in conflict. That firstly, you should be healthy by complying with everything the CDC and local and state guidelines, and model good behavior for your children with intensive hand washing and wiping things down and wearing masks and all the things that our leadership should be modeling for us. We also want to stay informed and stay in touch with reliable media sources and avoid rumors. We also want to be very mindful the way we express this to our children. We want to be honest about the seriousness of it and have a calm attitude and convey to the children that we believe that this is going to be over and things are going to come back to a state of normality. We want to comply with court orders. We want to be creative when we need to make change, because it is a it is something that we are going to need to be creative about. Camps are, amusement parks and activities aren't open. Kids have been doing homeschooling. We may have to make changes to be transparent, to tell your co-parent anything that they need to know if you've been exposed to the virus or anything like that, to be generous with makeup time or increase the virtual time, and to be understanding that the pandemic is going to pose economic hardships, maybe to a payor parent, to be understanding about all of the impact on everybody.
So these are the kinds of things that are useful for parents to keep in mind to help their children get through this pandemic in the best way possible, it looks like. Okay. All right. So we have a resources page, and these are the things that Lauren and I repeatedly refer to with our clients. And I'm sure there's many more, and we'd love to hear from all of you what other resources that you have. One of the other resources that I came across was this great sheet of video ideas for parents to interact with their children, because video visits are going to have been increasing and probably stay higher. So that's out there as well, and it's wonderful, and we can add that. Because even though, Sam may return to being having time with his children, he's definitely gonna, and he should be encouraged to have more virtual time with his children as well. Right. Well, that's pretty much what I think we wanted to present today. Is that right, Lauren? Is there anything else that we've missed?
Yeah. No, I think we pretty much covered everything that we wanted to cover.
Good. This is important information for everybody. Thank you for joining us.
So just want to jump in there and just remind everybody, if they want to send in questions, to send in questions using the chat feature. We did have a couple of people during your presentation just wanted to, I guess, qualify a couple of the scenarios. One is just to make clear that, Robin, you are not the attorney for the family. You are just somebody that Lauren is using as a resource.
Right.
That's right.
My colleague. She's my colleague who I'm consulting, and we often do this.
Yeah.
Talk to each other to get ideas about how to look at our cases.
Yeah.
And today's webinar was a little bit more of Lauren getting legal guidance from Robin, and we're going to do this, we're going to repeat this format and do it in the coming months and have it be a little bit the other way around, where Robin's going to seek out some advice from Lauren on more of the mental health issues.
Yeah.
We are getting a lot of nice feedback from people saying that it was very helpful, and we will be sending you the slides so you have access to the resource. I even have some of the articles linked, so I'll be sending that out to you as a follow-up. Somebody is asking if, I guess Leslie specifically, if you want to speak to any current offerings that you have during the COVID-19 crisis. Maybe you want to put in a pitch for the Coping with Co-Parenting series?
Sure. Yes, we are trying to sort of be there for parents as much as possible during this pandemic, because we do realize the stressors are enormous. So once a month, we do a co-parenting webinar series, which is free of charge. And we tackle issues that sort of help parents communicate in a better way, very timely issues. As Robin mentioned, we also have our parent education classes for divorcing and separating parents, which usually is live, and it will be live again, but we have it online now, an excellent program online. Because again, this is all about parents want to be the best, to be the best parent they can, but when they're under stress, it's often pretty difficult. And then of course, our Good Talk for Parents is literally a communication service, working with two parents, really trying to give them tools and strategies to work through their issues, so that when things happen, they can look deep inside themselves to help move their family forward.
And I have, one of the attendees is saying that she's working with some post-divorce parents who actually get along reasonably well and both truly believe in doing what's best for their child. However, and they are following the safe COVID protocols, but one parent still says it's not good enough. How would you advise that mediator in working with those folks?
Do you want to take that, Robin, or should I?
Yeah. I would have to have a little bit more of the factual detail to really kind of like parse through for this person what options. But, you know, this is a good circumstance where they might get an outside opinion, whether it's the pediatrician. That would be a really good idea in this case, because obviously the mediator has, you know, given the information that needs to be considered, but they're still parsing through what's safe and what's not safe. So maybe pediatrician advice would be great.
Yes. And I do think that we could use a kind of parent coordination tool, perhaps, or mediation tool, to talk to them about what are the most important things. What would it take for them to create a bubble? What are they most concerned about? What do they need to have to have trust and to have safety for their children? And what seems to be getting in the way to facilitate those difficult conversations? And maybe a coronavirus test could be helpful. And I agree with you, Robin, that a joint conversation with a pediatrician could be helpful. But I do know, and I've seen this over and over and over again, sometimes there are just other issues that are getting in the way, and it's important to try and surface those.
So we're just a little past 1:30. We're going to take a few more questions, but if some of you need to leave to get to your schedules, that's okay. But if you want to stay on a little bit longer, please feel free to do so. A little bit of follow-up to this scenario that we've been talking about. The person said that they did get opinions from outside sources, and unfortunately they were conflicting. So I don't know if in the case you have any other ideas. And then also somebody else is wants to let us know that sometimes you need up to 3 times the testing 3 times to rule out COVID.
Okay.
Is what they're saying. So I don't know if you have any other ideas that come to mind, or if this person should contact both of you directly.
I think so. I would probably need more particular information in order to offer any other ideas at this point.
Yes.
What is
I would also,
yeah.
I would also wonder whether they actually had a joint discussion with the pediatrician, because sometimes people will come away, if they have individual conversations, thinking they heard what they were supposed to hear or they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And in some cases, as a parenting coordinator, I have specifically either been on their call with their pediatrician or spoken with their pediatrician myself to hear what's being heard.
I'd like to just jump into, we talk about getting the COVID test, and now you can get it, more easily. So that's something. And just this weekend, I had the opportunity to take one, and I had just heard it was really painful, and I sort of did not want to take one. I didn't think I had it. I was getting the antibody test. They really encourage you to get the current one, and it's so well improved in terms of pain. So it doesn't hurt at all. So I think if that's even a bar, parents don't want to keep taking it or having their kids take it, that is something that has happened, that it's just much easier and less painful to take.
Yeah.
Is that the actual COVID test, Leslie, or the antibody test?
Yes. So the antibody test is a blood test. It's like a regular, blood test that you would give. But the actual COVID test, which I wasn't there for, but they really encourage you to take now, is a swab up each nostril, but it is so much less than what even a flu test was, if any of you ever had that. So in advising your client, you can say, you know, from what you have heard, I don't know if every place is like this, but it's a lot less invasive, the actual COVID test.
Yeah, I didn't find it to be very painful at all.
Okay, good.
Okay. Well, I want to take this time to thank everybody again for participating with us today. Thank you, Robin, Lauren, and Leslie, of course, all of our attendees, and of course, our sponsors. If it was not, you know, for the generous support of SoberLink and our Family Wizard, you know, we would not be able to do this series. And for the free service that SoberLink is offering, there is a link on their website for that, and it has to be applied for on behalf, by a professional on behalf of the parents. So I'll be sending that link out. And our next peer-to-peer webinar will be on July 20th, again at 1 to 1:30. As always, feel free to check out FamilyKind.org for additional free and low-cost resources, either for yourself or for your clients. And of course, as Leslie mentioned, we have the Coping with Co-Parenting webinar series, and that's geared towards parents. And that takes place on the first Monday night of each month from 8 to 8:30. So that's a nice free resource for your clients. Thank you again, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day, everybody.